And then in verse 18, Paul is putting it in a different way. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched, that's burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to a voice speaking with words that were so loud and so awful that people didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to bear the command. But, he says, even if an animal touched that mountain, I think he was referring to Sinai actually in this case, that it had to be stoned and killed. But even Moses at that point was trembling with fear at the holiness. But in verse 22, you get the other side of it. You have come to Mount Zion, to the heavenly Jerusalem, the city of the living God. You've come to thousands on thousands of angels. You to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all men, to the spirits of the righteous men made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant. So we are coming to not a place of rejection, of fire, of blackness and darkness, but we're coming to a place of joy in the kingdom. Look what it's saying. We are come to the assembly of the living God, to the heavenly Jerusalem, to the thousands of angels. We come to the church, those who are firstborn, whose names are written in heaven, and we've come to God as a righteous judge, but to come through Jesus, the mediator, and that means we come with no fear. But then it comes in verse 25. See to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. It's referring back to the chastisement of the Son, because it says, see that in verse 25, see that you do not refuse him that speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth. This is quite an unusual challenge here, that people who refuse to listen to God's voice on earth, how much more if will we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? In verse 26, at that time his voice shook the earth. But now he's promised, once more I will shake not only the earth, but the heavens. This is God's judgment. And there is a time of judgment coming. And I believe that we're coming very close to the return of Christ. And I'm going to say something very positive here, because the scripture warns us in so many places, starting in Matthew 24 and other scriptures, that before Christ comes, there'll be wars and earthquakes and signs in the heavens and on the earth. And I believe, and I don't hear other people saying this, but I am absolutely convinced that the floods that we're experiencing this year, the fires, the wildfires that have destroyed not just houses, but in some cases whole cities, and it seems as if this world has been shaken by not just earthquakes, but by serious forest fires greater than anything experienced before, in places where it wouldn't be expected. And I see that even in the dry deserts in California, they experienced floods that they haven't seen for hundreds of years, flooding the desert. And yet, of those floods also have come in the wrong places, where they've destroyed houses and killed people. And I believe all these things are not just a question of global warming. They may be caused by global warming, but whatever they're caused by, they are the fulfillment of prophecy. Because the prophecy is clear that before Christ comes back, there will be signs on the earth, signs in the heaven, and it refers, of course, because in those days they didn't experience the same flood, not since Noah's day, but they did in Noah's day. But literally, I believe that the wars that we're experiencing today, the earthquakes that we're experiencing, the floods, the rain, the fires, and more are all prophesied in the scripture that they have to happen before Christ returns. But through it all, I know that when Jesus comes back, he rules the world, and he will rule the world that he finds when he comes back, even if we are concerned with water levels, concerned with sea levels, the melting of the ice caps, the changing of the climate. God knows all this, and Christ comes back to this. And that's why he's saying the removing of what can be shaken and created. And he's talking about this. He says, once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. Anyway, you come then finally to verse 28. Therefore, since we are receiving that a kingdom that cannot be shaken, so we're going to be part of a kingdom that will not be shaken by these things, that will not be affected by floods and fires and earthquakes. So he ends up by saying, let us be thankful and so worship God with reverence and accept that our God is a consuming fire. Yes, God has all power. And I certainly believe in my own life that before Christ comes back, I will be a witness of the awe-inspiring power of God. And yes, God will destroy wickedness. God will destroy the evil. Today I despair of politics, of governments through the whole world. I find very few places where, not even in Israel at the moment, certainly not in Britain or in America, is there a level of government that is right and godly and solving our problems. But God, when he comes, will come as a consuming fire and destroy all the opposition and set up a perfect kingdom, perfect in every way, in administration, in government, and even in the weather and the geological aspect. God bless you.